Hey everybody, good morning. Good morning. It is day 86. Day 86 of spiritual healthcare. It is good to see everybody this morning. We've got a really awesome show ahead, and I'm really excited about it. So good morning to all of you. It is a beautiful day here in Edmonton. I don't know what everybody's doing all over the world. It is so nice to see everybody. Every morning is so cool to see everybody coming in. And we're gonna try something interesting today. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Oh, I do know how to add people. Okay, we're good. I think we figured this out already. Cool. So I am really looking forward because we've got a really neat topic coming up today, which is awesome. So good morning to everybody. Good morning, Nigel. Good morning to everyone logging in. It's awesome to see all of you, and it's always good to see everybody coming in the mornings. Good morning, Kaz. Good morning, Nigel. Good morning, everyone. It is, as I say, I hope you guys are having like really good weather. We are having awesome weather here right now. It was like really hot yesterday. Good morning, Sally. Nice to see you. You guys have rain. We have rain we're gonna have apparently rain on the weekend. This is from what I'm understanding. We've got rain on the weekend coming in. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So good morning. So Brandy and Shadow, you guys are all set in Texas. You guys are raining too. Crazy. Yeah, no, we're good here. We're warm and sunny, and it's awesome. I'm scrolling through comments and stuff right now. Cass says they're cooking 110 this week. That's crazy. So you guys are in a massive heat wave. Nigel's in a massive heat wave. Everyone's all over the place. So I'm going to bring on today a really special guest that I'm really excited about because we've talked so much in spiritual health care about things like magic and the universe and source and how we can create our reality. And I want to introduce you, and I'm gonna add Connor. I'm gonna add you right now. I want to introduce you to one of my very good friends. He is a amazing person, and he has really become sort of an expert in the world of magic and the lore behind just everything. Well, everything that about spiritual healthcare. So, good morning, Connor.
Hello.
Hooray! It's worked.
Yeah, wow.
Can you hear you?
Sorry, hold on.
There we go. Perfect. So I wanted to introduce he has really got a amazing just magic lore behind can you turn your speakers off? With that. That might help. I'm getting this weird feedback.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of feedback there as well.
Really weird. Okay. What to do with it. Maybe turn mine down. That actually might help a bit. There we go.
Oh yeah, hello.
There we go. I think. Are we better? I think we're better. I think we're better. Okay. So Connor used to work with me with paranormal research as well, and we just had such a blast investigating all sorts of things together. And how did you? I want to know, like, because you are originally from Scotland. I met you when you were really young.
Yes.
So tell everybody a little bit about like who you are and how you got to be where you are in terms of like spirituality, digging into Harry Potter, all of that.
Oh gosh. I was born in Scotland. I moved around a lot as a kid to the southern states, all the way down to the south coast of England and such. Sounds sick.
Yeah, yeah, and so with when you originally started talking and like getting into sort of the Harry Potter lore, did you notice that there was like a crossover between what was being written about and sort of like the paranormal and mythology side of stuff that you grew up with in Scotland?
Sorry, just give us a moment. It's getting a little bit of feedback again.
Sure. I'm getting it as well. Just trying to figure out how we can eliminate that. This is a big experiment today.
Magic and technology.
It is. It's just different technology. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why we're getting such weird feedback. That's so strange. Hold on here. I'm going to. We gotta run it. Let me see if we can fix this. I have no idea how to get rid of that.
Yes, there's like an echo.
No idea how to get rid of that. Yeah, it's really strange. Okay, you know what? We will continue spiritual healthcare today. Let me look into how to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And we will do this tomorrow when we can get rid of that. Is that cool?
That sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good because I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that. Okay, we will redo this tomorrow, and I will continue with spiritual healthcare, and we'll figure this out. Okay, talk to you in a bit. Okay, so that was frustrating. That was a little frustrating. I don't know what's going on with the feedback with this. That's crazy. So sorry about that, you guys. So we're gonna fix the feedback issue coming up in the next day or so here, and we will get through that and move through that. That's really weird. So there was a couple of other things that I really wanted to touch on, because this is one of the things that I really wanted to go through at some point this week, which is the idea of the mythology and how it all blends together in just lore and throughout the world. And we see that oftentimes, especially with historical locations and things like that. And it's funny because there is such a battle often with historical locations and people coming in wanting to investigate, wanting to do this kind of thing. And wanting to, get into locations that normally they would never have had access to prior or previously. So there was a couple of questions that I wanted to get on today regarding this, and because I thought this was, it's become an issue, especially since things like COVID-19 and things like that, where there's been quarantine. Of course, there was a big uproar and argument really at the beginning of quarantine. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there were investigators, I think they were in the UK, and they were going into these locations that were, of course, closed and whatever, and they couldn't see anything wrong with it because it's like, well, the location's closed. Like, what's the deal? What's the problem? So here, the question that came in I thought was really good, and it was, when you hear of somebody like paranormal researcher or whatever that's trespassing on a location, how is that impacting the field? How does that impact what is going on within the community, and what is the overall result of these people that are moving into, or like going onto properties without any permission? So there's a bunch of different, there's so many aspects to this that I really wanted to get a hold of and touch on, because I thought, when we've heard so many times of these people that are, breaking into properties, they get caught, of course they get caught by police, and things like that. And it's been something that's bothered me for a very long time, because I think, whenever we've got a situation where there's been, paranormal activity and somebody has called us in, first of all, we always have to remember that we are entering into a very trusting relationship with our client. And it drives me crazy because, you'll get these people that are, they're breaking the law. They're not paying attention to just the ethics of what's going on. And they're breaking trust, not only for clients that want to seek help and want to seek help for paranormal activity, but they're also breaking a sort of a sacred rule within the community itself, especially within like things like the scientific community as well. So it's really frustrating for me, because the main question was, how do I feel about it? And honestly, it's one of the most frustrating things. These people that aren't seeking permission, going out and doing what they should be doing in terms of, just going about things the right and the proper way. But you have to start to look at these people that are, deciding that they're going to like break into a location, sneak in and whatever, and start to look at the judgment process as well. Because here's the thing. Oftentimes when we get a experience with, an old building and we're allowed to go in, we're allowed to go do these things. One of the things that we really have to take into consideration is not only the safety of the client and the trust factor, which gets completely broken up if you find out that these people have been sneaking in and doing whatever, but the danger factor within the buildings itself. So, for example, we've got a abandoned hospital here in Edmonton, which has become a very famous hospital. And over the years, it's been the subject matter of a bunch of controversy. They've got it's multiple levels, multiple floors, and I've interviewed numerous firefighters and first responders that have pulled bodies out of the building, whether they've either fallen through the floor, people have passed away in this building. It's just been crazy. So we have to really keep in mind this as well, because if we are going into these locations, we have to pay attention to what it is we're actually looking for and investigating in terms of our environment. Investigating is more than just looking for supernatural activity. We have to really understand what it is we're going into. And one of the things that we have to look at, for example, and get concerned about is things like asbestos. We're looking at things like bacterial infections, all of these types of things. Mice cause a whole pile of problems. Hantavirus, all of these things when we're coming into abandoned locations and stuff like that. So we have to really start to pay attention to what exactly we are investigating, and if that is if this environment is actually safe. A lot of people don't think of that because they're so hyped into the idea of getting some sort of a supernatural result, and we have to really, really be careful about that. There's so much within the environment that we have to look out for. It's really crazy. So that's my opinion on that, and I really think we have to really start paying attention to how this looks when it comes to the public and whatnot as well. We've got a duty at this point as researchers and as paranormal investigators, I think, moving forward, to really understand that the world has broken trust right now on multiple levels. It really has. It's fractured in so many areas, and it has been for a very long time. It's just now, of course, it's being more publicized. It's being put forward a little bit more. And I really think as investigators, we have the duty and I think the drive. I think we should have the drive to be able to put proper information out there, so that what we're getting back, what we're moving through, what we're moving forward with, becomes something that is stable and has a stable foundation. So I think it's something that's really important. Do I think these people should be trespassing? No, absolutely not. I think it's a terrible idea, because, as I say, it breaks down what we do on so many levels. It's not good. So one of the other questions that came in recently, which I thought was really interesting, and I thought I'd touch on it because people have been asking me on different platforms for a while about gear, about investigative gear and things like that. And the one question that really stood out to me was, what was the worst piece of equipment that you think has been out there or has been used over the last number of years since this has become a real fad. And this is so interesting to me because some of the gear that has come out. I gotta readjust myself for this. Some of the gear that has come out over the last number of years, to me, has been, it's really been very much a gimmick. We have to remember that when we're investigating, when we're doing this type of thing, all of the equipment, the physical equipment that we're using, is all mainly about the measuring the environment itself. It's not about measuring ghosts, because let me tell you, there's no such thing as a ghost meter, okay? It does not exist, doesn't happen. We don't know what entities are made of, so therefore we can't turn around and measure what type of energy that they're emitting. We don't know. And when you don't know that, you can't create a meter to measure it. It's just that simple. And I usually get a lot of pushback about that because people always say, well, it's this meter will go off or that meter will go off. But oftentimes when you ask them what the meters are actually measuring, they don't actually have an answer for you. I found this in a major way with the REM pod that has been out over the last number of years. People, you'll ask them, well, what is the REM pod measuring? And they can't tell you. It's like, well, it's measuring energy. Well, that's not a measuring stick. Energy is not a measuring stick. Is it measuring joules? Is it measuring watts? Is it measuring milligauss? Is it measuring, what is it? What is it measuring? And most people don't know. So for me, some of the worst equipment is that, where it's faulty. It actually doesn't explain what it's measuring or what it's for. And that becomes a big problem. Trey's asking, what do you think of the spirit box? I have major issues with the spirit box. Number one, because when you're looking for EVP, for example, EVP doesn't come in on radio frequencies. It's a different set of frequencies that EVP comes in on. So you're not, that doesn't make sense just on its fundamentals. But the problem with something like a spirit box, even if you're on one of the people that has found results where they've seemingly gotten these random words that don't seem so random when they're asking questions, and things like that. The problem is that you'll never ever be able to introduce that as evidence, because you are literally dealing with radio frequencies. You're dealing with things where words are being interjected throughout. It's looking for various words. And when we start to weigh the idea of it being coincidence versus the way of it being, something that's a genuine interaction, there's really no way to prove that. So I got issues with the spirit box simply because on that level, because there's just no way to prove it. Number one, EVPs, as I say, technically they come in on a different frequency range, so that's a problem, and there's just multiple layers of issues with it. The other thing is that I noticed that people don't quite understand is that EVP itself is classified into about 4 or 5 different categories, and this was determined by the American Association for Electronic Voice Phenomena way back in the day by a lady by the name of Sarah Estep. And she basically, what they did was they divvied up EVP into multiple categories. So there was the Class A EVP are like crystal clear. You're not fighting to hear what it is. It's blatant. It's a response. It's clear as a bell. You could pass it to anybody, and they're all going to come out with the same understanding of it. All sorts of stuff like that. So that's a Class A EVP, and the more you go down B, C, D, E, the less translatable that EVP actually is. So this is the other problem with electronic voice phenomena, in my opinion, is the fact that when you get into things like the spirit box and whatnot, the clarity of the communication starts to go way down. And oftentimes, if it's not captioned at the bottom of the screen, if it's not shown at the bottom of the screen, you miss it. Like, you completely miss what it is. There could be multiple interpretations. And, of course, once you're told what it is, you hear those words regardless. So I'm always, for myself, I'm always looking for those Class A and B EVPs all the time, because other than that, I think it's prone to being completely misconstrued and whatnot, and it can be a real problem. So some of the pieces of equipment that I've found that have been bad has been items like those. But I also have to say that, like, when you're watching, or like when I'm watching some of the television shows, when I'm watching some of this stuff, what I've noticed oftentimes is it's not the equipment that they're using, it's how poorly they're using the equipment. So it's not necessarily that the equipment is terrible. Sometimes it's really, really good. Sometimes it can be top of the line with whatever it is, but they're using it so wrong that it doesn't matter. One of the things that I see so often misused in paranormal shows and things like that is things like EMF meters, the K2 meter, and tri-field EMF meters. I find it blows my mind how brutal that can actually become with use and lack of understanding. The K2 meter, and you guys have probably seen this a number of times, is it's a little meter, it's a little gray meter that registers electromagnetic fields, and it's got a row of lights that are on the top, and it's usually like green and orange and yellow and red at the top, and they talk about how this thing lights up when there's something close by, there's some sort of energy close by. And here's the problem with how these meters are used, and that is K2 meters specifically are not designated to read electromagnetic fields of living energies, right? They're actually designated for electronic equipment only. That's the range that these EMF meters just receive on. That's what they're designed and calibrated to do. So they're looking for things like electrics. They're looking for things like wiring, your cell phone going off, cameras, all sorts of bizarre things. I've even had it where we've been at a location and we've had some of these EMF meters go off, and what it was actually static that was running through air ducts. So the meter wasn't even close to a wall. It wasn't close to but every time the furnace would go on, that electromagnetic current that would start because of the dust would actually generate a result on our EMF meter. So we have to we have to understand what it is the meters are doing. What is it that they're looking for? Because if we don't, then we really aren't understanding the results that we're getting, and that's just it's not good. So oftentimes that's one of the main things that I've noticed has been just people missing the purpose of the gear to begin with, and then missing the answers and results because of it. The tri-field meter is one of these as well. A tri-field electromagnetic field meter it looks like a little box, and it makes this terrible whiny noise. And oftentimes what I'll see on the shows is that people will be walking around with these tri-field meters, and the tri-field meter will be losing its mind. There's nothing around it, but the tri-field meter the alarms are going off, it's going nuts. But what people aren't understanding, what these people in the shows aren't understanding, is that the tri-field meter works by sensing the energy around it. It's sensing the electromagnetics and disruption in the electromagnetic field around the meter itself. So of course it's going to go off. Of course it's going to go off if you're moving it around, because it's picking up on you. It's picking up on your disruption of the electromagnetics around it. So it's stuff like that it looks impressive. It sounds, amazing and whatnot when you're not understanding how the meter works. But when you get it and you start to work in and understand what the problem is and where it's coming from, then you can start to understand, why the meter is making the noise it's making. It's really, really interesting, and they go off for all sorts of reasons. But the tri-field meter specifically, if you guys see that on any of the shows and somebody's walking around with it, and honestly, that is why it's going off, is because there's a disruption around in the fields itself. Now, that being said, for the tri-field meter, here's the thing, is that when you're using it really well and you're using it properly, when you set it and you calibrate it like the way it should be, the way it was designed for, and that meter goes off when there is no person that's moving around it, your cat hasn't walked in front and all of that kind of thing, then you have to start to pay attention, because that should not be happening. And so for me, the tri-field meter is probably one of my favorite pieces of equipment, because it is almost foolproof in the way that if something is stepping in front of that electromagnetic space that it's defined for itself, if something steps in front of it, that meter is going to go off. And if there's nobody there and that thing goes off, now you've got something that you want to be paying attention to. And so, as I say, tri-field meter is probably one of my favorite things. It's really, really interesting. So probably the best piece of equipment, and I run through this, and it sounds a little cheesy, but I gotta say, because so many people forget about it when they're moving into these spaces, is their own sense of internal guidance. That is it's a major issue with people that are very scientifically based, people who have, rely strictly on the equipment. We have to remember that our own internal guidance is something that is so important. And when we start to step into that, we start to move through the world in paying attention to those moments of stillness, those moments of connection and communication, we start to be able to see a little bit more than what we would normally. And I don't mean see visually necessarily, but we start to experience a little bit more instinctually, which is one of the things that I wanted to read a little bit about today for you guys in T.D. Jakes' Instinct, because I love this book. It's one of my favorite books, and I wanted to share a little bit of this with you guys this afternoon, because I think he puts it so well, and how important this really becomes within our own field research. Relying on your instincts is not enough. You might survive, but you won't thrive without due diligence and the research needed to sharpen and hone your instincts. I am convinced instincts operate more accurately when they have as much data as possible. Our instincts then process facts, figures, financials through the filters of our personalities, experiences, and goals. It's where art and science meet to create this most unique navigational system for living. As we learn to live by instinct, we will draw on all we've experienced, all our tests and tragedies, triumph and setbacks. Curiously enough, the word science is derived from the Latin word scientia, which at the core means knowledge. And knowledge comes in part from experiences and in part from encounters. Every systematic enterprise must build and organize acquired knowledge in the form of testable hypothesis and calculated predictions about its environment. As surely as my backyard turned into a jungle at night for my dogs, your new level of achievement will become your laboratory for innovation and improvisation. Before making assumptions based on prior knowledge, compare what you've learned to what you observe around you. And if you study your strides, you're less likely to stumble. So I love that. I think it's completely applicable to what we're talking about when it comes to paranormal research. It really all blends into what it is that we do as investigators, how we move into the space, and how there is always that balance, and it's a really big deal. So not only is it a balance on the ethical and trust end of our relationship with the world and people, but also in terms of how we relate to our gear, how we relate to our equipment, how we understand it, and how we understand ourselves and our intentions moving forward. So I think it's really crucial, and especially as we go forward into this new world that we're entering into, we have to be able to do that also, is to pay attention to those things, gather data, and not from just one resource, not from one news station, not from one online resource or whatever, is be able to gather information and understand what it is that's going on both sides of the spectrum. I think it's really, really important to do your research. So that being said, I am going to work out the interview issues so that we can get going with that in the next couple of days, because I'm really looking forward to being able to do this subject of mythology and the paranormal and Harry Potter and lore and all of that. So that's what we're going to be working on this afternoon. And until then, we got to do our peace affirmations going forward. So everybody take a breath. I'm a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. At this moment, all is well. I am able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate the beauty and abundance of the life around me, and I am able to embrace love while letting go of fear. I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. And everybody take a breath. Thank you guys so much for another awesome morning. I can't wait to continue this discussion and so many others. We will, of course, be back tomorrow morning with spiritual health care at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Please share the videos and the playlist on YouTube. Everything, every little bit helps. I want to make sure that, you know, all of this is accessible to as many people as possible. And have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, you guys. And I will see you all tomorrow morning in spiritual health care. Bye, everybody.